Alright, here we are again once more with data. I've taken about 2 weeks off, but I have the spreadsheet all done. So with all this data of 4 weeks, we can now pretty safely put together a tier list. So we will be, while there is cumulative data that you can find down this spreadsheet below, which will contain all sorts of data about how many decks, how many of each clan is topping, like the percentage is topping within locals, which is 8 to 29 player events. I've excluded all 7 player less events from the locals numbers. Large singles, which is events that are 30 or more people, and teams, which are the majority of VGCSs, unfortunately, which really skews the data because on teams, because Kagro has a very high rate of being played on teams, but outside of teams it performs much worse than the other decks that perform similarly. So yeah, it just kind of skews the results for Kagro and makes the team data kind of unreliable, makes Oracle Think Tank seem to be more dominant than they are, and yeah. So let's go through this. At tier 1, we have Oracle Think Tank at 19.27%, Dimension Police at 16.06%, and Granblue at 15.60%. Oracle Think Tank being here at the very top should be no surprise. They very easily get high quality advantage with all the filtering that they do, and they allow themselves to guarantee triggers with their scrying effects. You know, very strong stuff. Deer is an extremely strong finisher. They're the clan most able to abuse the gift mechanic because they are built around riding a new grade 3 every turn, and their finisher, Deer, feeds into that, even working on rear, and it's just really strong deck. Since V-EB02 has dropped, which dropped around the same time as the promo pack in Japan, most decks have also been running 2 Battle Sister Torte, which allows them to get additional crit pressure on their rear, and a lot of decks aren't really able to pressure them down below that 10 hand after they've gotten their draw for turn, their drive checks, their protect a hand from running a new grade 3, and the additional card to hand that grade 3 is going to give them. So yeah, very strong deck. Dimension Police is a very explosive deck with latent crit and high power on that Dayusha from turn 3. Like when you're when you're on grade 2 and you have this 35k power 2 critical behemoth coming at your face, it's not a pleasant time. And then on the next turn they're going to follow that up with another double 2 crit attack, and then they're going to ride into Great Dayusha, give plus 50k spread to their front row, and hit you with 4 big attacks on that turn. And then past that point they still have Commander Laurel to pressure you with a high crit attack. It comes as no surprise that the other 2 decks that are performing in tier 1 are protect decks, since those are the decks most capable of dealing with this, due to that protect gift giving them easy ways to deal with those 2 crit very high power attacks. In addition to that, Sylvard has been a big boon to them. Almost every list that's topped has run 1 or 2 of this. Sylvard allowing you to have 2 crit on your rear guard as well. That means so that if you even hit 1 crit on that turn, well, all of your attacks now have 2 crit on them, and your opponent, if your opponent takes any of them, well, they're going to be down 2 damage, and if they don't take any hits, they're going to be struggling on Counter Blasts to use, and they're going to be down a lot of hand. And Granblue has the highest advantage ceiling in the game. That advantage is not as high quality as Oracle Think Tanks, but that's still how it goes. Because Cutlass gives you a +1 while also countercharging. They have a very high ceiling for card advantage, and they can revive. Like, the things that they have access to for revival are very powerful. Skull Dragon is a huge threat, and if you ever let yourself go to 5, they can revive Franger and get a guaranteed hit on you if they have their hand prepared for it. Blue Blood is an extremely good filter, allowing them to turn that field advantage that they generate into hand advantage. Baskirk's latent 2 crit, in addition to your Skull Dragon attacks and your Blue Blood pressure and all that stuff, is overall just very strong, makes for a very powerful deck. And yeah, I don't think there's much else to say there. Grand Blue's just very strong, lots of card advantage, lots of high power. You may notice that all of these tier 1 decks have Vanguards that are 2 crit. It seems to be a running theme. So moving on from there, we have tier 2 with Kagero at 10.09%, Royal Paladin at 10.55%, and Aquaforce at 10.09%. So Royal Paladin has had quite a bit of a resurgence. I'm honestly not sure if the performance here for Royal Paladin and Aquaforce, and maybe even Kagero, is just because the clans are popular, or if it's actual legitimate performance. Yeah, Aquaforce, like, even if Aquaforce is quite bad in a lot of aspects, it still does better than Novas, which, unfortunately, despite their big buffs, are the worst performing deck in the format, bar none. Yeah, a lot of the Aquaforce decks are running Navel Gazer. There's a very high rate of use of Navel Gazer, and that Trial Deck boss kind of saved the deck, because Maelstrom just really doesn't contribute anything. Yeah. Then we've got Royal Paladin, which has, in comparison to how it was performing last format, Royal Paladins have had quite a bit of a resurgence. At the end of the day, they are still a consistent deck, and with a lot of Counterblast 1+1s. No Counter Charge engine to speak of, but you know, sometimes just having that good advantage is enough to perform at least this well. And Kagero's drop-off shouldn't come as that big of a surprise. Dimension Police and Grand Blue don't in particular care about the retire. Grand Blue especially, like Grand Blue against Kagero can just go, okay, I'm going to revive Skull Dragon every turn. This is going to die anyway, so your retires aren't going to matter. Then my other column will just be something plus Cutlass. If you retire my back row Cutlass, then I'm just going to be able to use it again earlier in the game. And generally don't invest boosters to the board, which really hurts Kagero's ability to kill with Waterfall, because retiring boosters and forcing the opponent to reinvest is really a huge part of what leads into it. And Grand Blue having all of these attackers that can just hit solo and don't care about that retire happening, yeah, it's really good for Grand Blue. And Dimension Police don't really particularly care about specific units dying, because Dayusha can just rest anything, and Great Dayusha is going to make any front row into a threat. So, yeah. Yeah, that's the problem for Kagero, and Kagero already had issues with OTT, so with the whole Tier 1 being composed of decks that have solid matchups to Kagero, it should come as no surprise that they've dropped down like this. And then the Tier 3 is composed of Nova Grappler at the very bottom with 3.21%, Mega Colony at 3.67%, Tachikaze at 5.20%, and Spike Brothers at 5.96%. Now, it should be noted that Spike Brothers have had quite a few team performances, like on-team performances, and we've had a real lack of large singles results to pull from. So I would say that I consider Spike Brothers' quality to be closer to a Tier 2 deck, and they're a very viable rogue deck. But just going off the data, have to place them in Tier 3. It's also very unfortunate to see Tachikaze drop off like this. This might just be a popularity thing because of the volatile nature of Tachikaze. Less players might be bringing it into tournaments. The same might apply to Mega Colony because Mega Colony is a very combo-centric deck. But yeah, all of these decks are not performing too great. All of the EB01 decks had a very large drop-off from their topping percentages in the EB01 format, and Novas are exactly where they were before, except now even though they got King and Queen and a revitalization in the Sura build that was debuted at Yamato VGCS, it's still not performing great. In fact, it's performing the worst, and I imagine it would be even lower if Novas had not received those cards. Like, imagine if those cards hadn't come out, Novas, I imagine, would be like in 1 to 2%. It's not good, and it's rather unfortunate that there's no second wave for Nova Grapplers in sight. With that said, all the data that I've been referencing can be found in the Google Doc and Google Spreadsheet down in the description below. Hope you check that out. I will be continuing to update it in the coming weeks, and of course making a new one for BTO2, and hopefully getting these videos going weekly. Sorry for being gone on content for a while. I'm going to be doing some videos over the next few days, just talking about the reveals we've had for the BTO2 decks, giving my general thoughts on what we've seen. But with that said, this is Hunter Surge signing off.